Steve Moore let me borrow his big book, y'all.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelly. I'm an alcoholic. It is really good to be in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been doing Zoom meetings the last, month or two because of the COVID stuff and having a new baby. And it's just so good to be in person and feel everybody's energy and pick up my chip and, see my friends, and y'all are my family. It's really, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to set my timer. So, in thinking about, the topic of recovery and not just kind of wanting to get up here and tell my whole story, I just thought about my day today. And it was an amazing day. I got up, I played with little Jack, who's 6 months old. I remotely went to work. But I showed up, I worked hard, I have an awesome job that I love what I do. I work in Washington, D.C. on changing our mental health and addiction treatment systems. And it's an awesome job. And I got asked today to sit on a committee, or speak on a committee that the National Academy of Medicine is hosting about developing recommendations for the White House on access to treatment. And I got that call today. And I talked to a couple of friends. I, just lived my life. And it's this incredible, I talked with my family, and I showed up here and saw people that I love. I just can't even tell you guys what a beautiful miracle life full of gifts that is. And I share that with you guys because that is not what my days were like on the other side of my sobriety date. I don't think I could have fathomed any one of those things in my life that I have today back then. Not even one. And not even about having those things in my life, but the inside peace and joy that I feel to get up every morning and want to live. That I also could not fathom. There's a paragraph in here that it really just jumped out at me when I was thinking about this earlier. It's in, and I know I say this I've said this a few times, but I'll say it again in case there's anybody who's really new. So the book I'm reading out of, which is a gigantic version of it right here, but we call it the Big Book, and it's called Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the book that explains the program. And for anybody that's new and you don't know what that is and you weren't sure what I was reading out of, or I wanted to explain that because I didn't know what that meant for a long time. When people said the Big Book, I thought they were talking about the Bible, and there was a lot of jargon and things people would say, and it took me a long time to really even start to understand. So I wanted to point that out in case you were wondering what we're talking about here. And so this is in a book this is in a chapter called We Agnostics, which is talking about this whole concept of why is there the concept of a higher power in Alcoholics Anonymous? And it's really talking to people who might not be sure that there is anything that exists out there. And I was one of those people for sure. It's talking about, what it's like when we're out there. It says, we were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We could not seem to be of real help to other people. And it calls this list of things the bedevilments. And that list, that described exactly my life. Not only could I not stop drinking or using because I didn't know another way to function or to like be a person in the world without it. I didn't believe that happiness was a thing that existed. And it was like I was watching a movie of myself just continuing to do these like very self-destructive, dangerous, and just, sad actions in my life. And as Matthew said earlier, I came to recovery when I was young. And even back then, even from, after those, very, very few first times that I drank, it was clear that I had found the solution to my problems, and it was drugs and alcohol. And I proceeded to engage in that solution as much as possible until I, didn't know how to live without it. And then continued even after that. And it talks also in this book about how, the 12 steps and what they describe in here is how we recover. That we recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And that is a good description of where I was. And I want to say this too. It was where I was when I got sober, but it's also been where I have been at various times in my sobriety too. I think that there's often a narrative that I hear in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I don't think it's on purpose, but I think it's the way, things are described, that like everything that was bad that ever happened or that I did was before I got sober, then I got sober and everything's great, thank you, clap, clap, clap. And, I don't know about everybody else in here, but that's definitely not been my experience. And when I think about this legacy recovery, I feel like it's such a dynamic concept. Like it can mean, the removal of drugs and alcohol from my life, that I'm, living free of the prison of addiction, right? But I think also, to me, it means like my journey, not just away from drugs and alcohol, but towards a life that's full of joy and freedom. And to do that, I, have not only just kind of like done the steps, but it's, and I'll talk about that too, but if I have time, but it's, how am I showing up in participating in my recovery every day? What am I doing on a daily basis to show up and participate? Am I showing up at the meeting? Am I reaching out to the new person? Am I reaching out for help if I'm struggling? And again, not just struggling with wanting a drink, but struggling with feeling alone, struggling with relationships and finances, that's the stuff, you guys. Putting down the drink, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But then, add in having to be a person in the world and deal with people and relationships and family and all that kind of stuff. And that's when, that's when it's like all this stuff, the proof is in the pudding, right? And when I'm not working it, when I'm not kind of connected to it, I can see myself acting out, lashing out, engaging in other types of destructive behavior. Maybe it's not drinking, but sure are a lot of other things I can be doing, right? The other thing I was thinking about with recovery is that I don't think I can divorce that concept from the concept of a spiritual experience. And it's interesting, I've lived in a lot of different places and been sober in a lot of different places, and people talk about God and higher power and spirituality kind of differently, in different parts of the country. And people's experiences sometimes are the same, but sometimes very different. And what I have found is, everyone's experience can be their own. Like I can take, from something, Courtney shares in a meeting, or Blake, or that somebody shares with me, or that I heard or read, but that relationship with my higher power is personal to me. It's personal to me. And that everybody has their own relationship with their higher power. Everyone's on their own path. And that the whole kind of fundamental idea of this program is that there's a place in here, and I'm not going to read anymore, but it's that there's like this prism through which I see the world. And it's all of my, it's all my stuff that I see the world through. Like all the resentments and the fears and the harms and, the good stuff too, right? But like I see everything through that. And then everything comes in through that too. And to me, the process of these steps in this program and connecting to a program of recovery is like clearing that path. Clearing the path so I can see the truth of things. And I feel like I've had to experience that a lot over and over in the course of my sobriety and my recovery, like getting sober, learning how to just connect with another person. I think I suffered from crippling self-pity when I came into this program. I mean, I was like professional. And really having to like set that aside and get over myself. That was, I think, the very first kind of crack in that, veil. And then kind of going through the process of working the steps and humbling myself and sharing my stuff with somebody else, with another woman in the program, going to people and saying, hey, I messed up. That was wrong, and I don't want to be that person anymore. And I'm talking about sets of amends that I've made, not just from things that I did when I was drinking, but things that I did when I was in sobriety. For me, it wasn't that I took the drink away and I was, a perfect unicorn human. In fact, it was in a lot of areas of my life the opposite. The drinking wasn't an excuse. It wasn't like the thing that I was doing all the time. So I found other ways to get myself into trouble, and then having to go and clean that up, and really working with a sponsor and connecting with a higher power about what kind of woman do I want to be in sobriety? How do I want to live? How free do I want to be? And crippling self-pity. And I think, swinging to the other end of the spectrum of thinking, hey, I got this. How many of us have thought that? Man, I'm doing good. I'm going to tell you how you should be doing. Here's the list. Go do that. You'll do great. I feel like the word ego maybe isn't even like strong enough for some of the, emotional states I've been in over the course of my sobriety, and having to navigate that, and people both gently and not so gently telling me like it was, right? And having to get over myself yet again. I think that and then the veil opening just a little bit more, right? A little bit more, peeling away, sometimes slamming shut and feel like I have to start all over again. And to me, I think the further along I get in this thing, the more I realize that it's very, very simple. Stay out of my own way, connect with something bigger than me, and connect with you guys, And the steps are a process, a step-by-step process in which to do that, because I don't know how to do that. Left to my own best devices, it's like that pendulum swing between, not good enough and better than everything. And I think over the years, that pendulum has kind of come to the middle. And then it goes all the way over here again, and then all the way over here again. But you guys are here. You guys are here to help walk through that with me. And so when I think about recovery as a concept, I don't think it can be separate from unity or service. And I don't think it can be separate from my relationship with a higher power that has grown and changed, in clearing that pathway to listen to my inner kind of like truth of things and what's the next right thing for me to do. And those bedevilments have been replaced for me with promises, that come after the ninth step in this book, which come after having to humble myself and go to people and say, hey, I was wrong, which come after having to really kind of commit to this program and say, even if I don't believe, even if it's hard, even if, I'm still going to walk through one day at a time. So yeah, it was a really good day today, and it's been a string of really good days, and then there's a string of really hard days, and then back to good again, right? But I think about how I never had good days, not just when I was drinking, but for a while in early sobriety. And then the one good day, it was like, wow, it can happen. Like, maybe this could be a real thing. And now it's like a shit day, sorry for my language, but that's how I used to describe it, is the exception, not the rule. One day at a time. So it's really good to be here. Thanks, you guys.
Another hand for Shelly? Yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, I'm Merilyn, and I'm an alcoholic. And I do have my watch here, and it slides down. Okay, that's where it's going to be. And I can tell you that I was surprised and delighted to be invited to speak on unity, to speak on any panel, to speak for any AA reason, anywhere, anytime. I was just so pleased to receive this invitation. And I can look at my, 19 months of sobriety versus Shelly's 24 and Steve's 30-something, and say, why would they include me? But I guess, you got to have an odd man out. And then if it goes badly, they'll have a place to, to lay that burden down. I think I'll start by just describing the weekend I just enjoyed with my sister-in-law. She suffers from severe rheumatoid arthritis, and she just needed some help because my brother was on his way to Africa to climb Kilimanjaro. Not that he was thinking of himself. It's not like that at all. Anyway, but the cool thing is, as soon as I knew she was having some new problems, and the cool thing is that as soon as he said this, that, the other, I'm going to be leaving, and I knew he was going to be leaving, the first thing that came in my head was, should I come now? And that's not how I used to be. Should I come now? And we decided we would wait just a few days until he was just about to lift off the ground to go to Africa, and then I could spend some time with her, helping her get through some things that needed to be done in the house. And so what does that have to do with unity? Well, I just felt this sense of a real connectedness with my sister-in-law, with my brother, when my automatic reaction was, how can I help? So I felt very unified. I feel very connected to you guys, standing in front of you tonight. I know your names, I know your faces. And the sense of connection, it's like real. I can feel it vibrating in my chest, partly because I'm a little nervous. So I just wanted to sort of have that little preamble about my personal unity within my family, because there was a time when I had no unity in my family. My children didn't want to speak to me. My husband had kicked me out. My professional colleagues forgot I existed, never heard from them again, and I could go on and talk about, self-pity. I was pretty much, well, I was extra good at it. I think I was better than Shelly. Anyway, unity has been a huge part, a slow-to-come-to-me process, but a huge part of my finally and at last recovery. Because I've been a member of Alcoholics Anonymous for 19 years, and I've had long periods of difficult, challenging recovery, not recognizing that there was something wrong. And I've gone out and had pretty important relapses, pretty important. You know, when your blood alcohol level's 0.41, you might have a problem. So there's that. Anyway, it just took me a while to get these messages, and today they just shine so clearly, and I really feel for anyone who is new, who isn't getting it. Talk to me and learn from me, and I will make you whole. Yeah. Pretty sure that's my next job. I'm going to read briefly from Language of the Heart. Oh, my mouth is really dry and I left my water over there. Okay. This is from Language of the Heart, Bill W.'s writings in the Grapevine, from pretty much the time the Grapevine began in 1948. Yeah, 1948. Okay, so here goes, page 94 in Language of the Heart. The recovery steps would make each individual AA whole and one with God. I think Shelly got that point across beautifully. The 12 points of tradition would make us one with each other and whole with the world about us. Unity is our aim. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the traditions. I'm not an AA historian. I don't feel sufficiently erudite, Blake, to speak off the cuff about the 12 traditions. But I heard from a dear friend today that a cool thing with the 12 traditions is to look at number 1 and number 12 as, you know, sort of the essential beginning step and the culmination, and all the traditions in between, you know, being a part of this process that might end with something as beautiful as the 12th tradition. So just a little bit more to read. Our AA traditions are, we trust, securely anchored in those wise precepts: charity, gratitude, humility, nor have we forgotten prudence. May these virtues ever stand clear before us in our meditations. May Alcoholics Anonymous serve God in happy unison for as long as He may need us, which I think is so cool. For as long as God needs us, we'll be here for you, God. So I think those are just some really cool words on recovery and unity. From that is better. From a bird's eye view, this is just my personal experience of unity. It's, you know, first you have to become one with yourself. And I think about my own self and how hard it was for me to become one with my own self. But there has to be some kind of unity, that inside job that Alcoholics Anonymous speaks to on a regular basis. That has to happen first. So think about Bill W. having done some personal healing. How cool is that on his own? Personal healing. I'm not trying to rap a song or anything. But then to hook up and unite with Dr. Bob. I mean, it wasn't that funny. To hook up with Dr. Bob. And they become this united little front, this little united front that puts out shy tentacles. And one by one reaches so many alcoholics that by some cataclysm, something from God makes it a society of a few million people today. Well, at least 2.5 million people today. So there's that in that bird's eye view of unity, I first see just the one individual intersecting with the next. And of course we have that as newcomers walk into our rooms, we do rush around them, I believe, and maybe we make them very afraid. But my hope is that we make them see you belong, and there's a unity in that. So then you find a sponsor for that intense unity, perhaps like the one that Bill had with Bob, but just with peers in general, just be able to walk into a room like right here, right now, you know my name? I'm Merilyn, I'm an alcoholic. It's like, you knew that. I know you knew that. I mean, it's just really, you better laugh. You knew that. And then, you know, as things expand to the concept of a fellowship, you know, you've got the home group where you show up and people, again, know your name, they expect you to be there, you're greeted, and little by little you're building little relationships with the people in the rooms. And there's a beautiful thing there, that home group, where if you don't show up, someone might just text you or give you a call, where you been, everything okay. I've had that experience, which is pretty cool. So there's that, you know, larger unity just within a group like this. This is a pretty big group. And then to go to bigger concepts like unity between groups, we begin to rely on the traditions that I'm not going to really get into here, but the traditions that allow groups to interface with groups, and then districts of groups to interface with districts of groups, and then areas, often states, entire states, are able to interface with different states. And there's just this beautiful unity. And I've never been to like an international conference. I'm told that sometimes there are as many as 100,000 alcoholics holding hands and reciting the Lord's Prayer. Am I overstating? Apparently I'm not overstating. So let's just go with that. Just the power that would come from just that kind of unity, the energy, the force field you would feel in the room. You know, much as, like right now I feel a force field, and it's coming from you guys. It's not coming from me. It's just this energy of a room full of members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's so beautiful. Other things that I think of when I ponder unity, my watch is over here. I'm about done. Tastes so good. The group conscience. What a cool example of unity. You know, where minority opinions are allowed to have a voice, where people are allowed to disagree, where people are allowed to separate and prayerfully consider for a day, a week, a month, whatever it takes. And a beautiful example. And I wasn't here to experience it, and I'm sorry I wasn't, because it must have been really cool. But was what the primary purpose group was able to come up with so that they could continue meeting through the COVID epidemic, starting in 2020. I mean, what a great example of members of the group coming together and some having very differing opinions, and yet still they could come to you know, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity, and come to a unified conclusion. And the big book is pretty unifying. I've read it a bunch of times, mostly with other people, thank goodness, because I need a lot of help. I'm a slow learner, as I've already explained that. But just that core common text that back in the day was the only thing the traveling salesman could carry to that guy out in, well, way out west in Illinois, say. You know, I mean, it just when I think of the big book, when I read the big book and I think in those terms, people reading it in isolation, it really, if you would have to read it, I would have to read it so slowly and carefully, but it just brings all these unifying concepts to the fore. You know, identification, not comparison. I help you, you help me. Stay away from the first drink. That's recovery. I think it's so important, and I kind of thought about this when I was thinking about the whole COVID epidemic thing. There was a minority opinion that was heard, and Bill W. thought it was very important that the minority opinion be heard, just in case, maybe they would sway the group, or just because it was a different perspective, they should not be disregarded. So I think it's just so cool that Bill W. was a big proponent of the minority opinion, and that continues to this day. Right? Okay, everybody's saying right. Okay, so other unifying things, and I'll wind up with this. I did have a page of notes. I actually worked on this a little bit. I do have a page of notes here, and what I say at the very bottom is, what else unifies us? We're unified against a common fatal illness. We're unified under God, equal amongst ourselves. No one seeking an excess of recognition or denigration, just we are equal amongst ourselves. And that we have the unity of singleness of purpose. All who declare themselves alcoholic may enter. Anyone who has a desire to stop drinking may enter. This is just not just unifying, but really generous. Peace on earth, goodwill to men, kind of generous. And I guess I'm going to end there. I'm trying to think of some anecdote I might conclude with. I'll just talk about myself briefly, because why not? I was not a unifier. My relapses were, I know, entangled with my inability to be a unifier, to truly connect, to make a true partnership with my fellow man, because I was always, duking you out, not overtly. No, overtly I'm like, la, 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 la. But in my head, man, and then I'm going to say, and the next thing I'll do is, and I don't live there anymore. I don't have secret fights with people, and I don't. I gave them up, and that has allowed me to be part of unity. And what a gift it's been for me to just be able to be comfortable in my own skin, and to feel this connection with you guys. And I feel confident that if I moved on to larger venues, I would feel comfortable there too. And that's unity. That's what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Steve Moore, alcoholic. It's good to be here. It's good to be sober. You taking my water? Shelly, congratulations on 24 years. Good job. You got sober when you're about 10, I guess. And good job speaking on recovery. And Merilyn, you're always a trip. Actually, you did overstate the international, but I was too scared to call you out on it, so I forgot you gave up the fight. So, but anyway, good job. Good job with that. I made some notes too, but I probably won't use any of them. But it's hard to talk about. My job is to talk about service, and it's hard to talk about that without really thinking about recovery and unity. And sometimes I think about my own life, believe that or not, but I think about other people that I work with, and they want to jump into service and go help a bunch of people and do a bunch of stuff. And, sometimes that's important on some level, but until the recovery and the unity is in place, the service will never really be that effective, I don't think. And, so I think about my own life when I think about recovery. I just think about the fact that I was a young guy. I was suffering from alcoholism. I didn't have a clue what was wrong with me. And all I knew was I was out of control, going to jail a lot, hurting a lot of people, and getting locked up. And so when I thought about recovery, I thought I was a guy that was just completely out of control, and I needed help. And the recovery happened in my life you know, when I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous and took the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I just think about what the 12 and 12. I think it's the 12 and 12 of Ford. It says that the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous are a set of principles that, if practiced as a way of life, will expel the obsession to drink, and that's been my experience. Now, a lot of what Shelly said, I've had a lot of other obsessions. It ain't expelled because the world is full of a lot of distractions, and I'm easily distracted. But as far as recovery from active alcoholism, that's been in place for a long time. The rest of it is a day at a time, trying to practice some principles and spiritual growth. And then when I think about, so the steps help me to be recovered, and the traditions help me to be unified and give up the fight and try to get along with other people. And you know, I try to do that the best I can. And then when talking about service, if I've got that in place, my job is to go help somebody. And you know, one of the things that I know is when there's work to be done, God will show up and He'll make that work happen, and He'll open the doors. I think about an experience with service. It was a place up in Lakeview, the ladies' place that y'all carry a meeting to. We got shut down there years ago. They wouldn't let us in there, but we prayed and we decided we would go back and reach out to them. And I think Karen and I don't think it was Karen and I went and met with those folks. That lady up there, and she was open to us coming in there and carrying a meeting in there when it was face to face. And so God had some work for us to do, and those doors open. The other area of service I think about the jail. So yeah, I think we've practiced a lot of unity and patience and love and tolerance with each other through the last 2 years, but we got shut down from taking the meetings face to face to the jail. And I, after about a year, I reached out to Captain Flynn up there, and I said, "What about us zooming into the jail?" I knew that was a crazy idea and it was never going to happen. He said, "If we do that," he said, "you and I both will go to jail." And I'm like, "Well, Captain Flynn, I don't mind if you go to jail. I'm good with that, but I've been to jail. I ain't been in your new one for any period of time and don't intend to." But that was his words. And so when the captain tells you it ain't going to happen, then like it ain't going to happen. But we, continue to pray. And it was just a few months later, he sent me an email. He said, we have some things set up, and we have the TV monitors on order. And as soon as they come in, we're going to zoom into these inmates and carry the message. And so when God has work to do in learning to, figuring out how to serve other people, those doors will open. And I just think that was a cool experience. And, and again, it's hard to talk about because I think that they all three come together, recovery, unity, and service. And they're hard to talk about one without the other. But when I was thinking about unity, we got that snow, I guess, Saturday morning, and I went out on the deck to talk to God, and it was cold, so I said, "God, you need to listen fast because I'm going to talk really quick." But I went out there to pray and just try to get connected with the universe and spirit and just continue to tap into the power. And I made a snowball on the rail of the deck, and it wasn't a big one, it was a small one, but anyhow, I went out there 2 days later and all the snow was gone, but the snowball was still there. And I thought how powerful it is when we come together with one mind and one heart, that we stick together and we be recovered from alcoholism, and we're in a position to I think do what the book says, go help people, and actually we've been given the power to avert death and misery for other people. And I just think about, when we do that and we stick together, regardless of our differences, regardless of whether we agree with how we're carrying a message or how we're going to run the meeting, but if we stick together, there's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in that. And, I know we might not all like each other, but the book says we're supposed to love and tolerate each other. And I heard it said one time, I don't know, it probably is true. If you love everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe I hadn't been to enough meetings. Because not everybody's gonna like each other, may not love each other, but there's one thing for sure. When someone walks in through a door at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and they're suffering from alcoholism, I don't care what our differences are, we're going to try to help that person and give them the best we can and serve them the best we can. And I think it speaks to tradition too, that if I've taken the steps and I'm trying to trust that power, my job is to be a trusted servant and serve other people. So I was just thinking about early on in Alcoholics Anonymous, how did those guys, and y'all hit on it, how did they serve early on? And I thought about when Bill Wilson, when he started staying sober, Ebby went and talked to him. And so I think that's the first service, and it wasn't even Alcoholics Anonymous at that time, but I think that's the first and most important service we give is when we reach out and talk to another alcoholic. And Ebby did that. He learned that from the Oxford group. And Bill eventually got sober, and he was sober about 6 months. He went way out west. He was in Akron, right? And he was in a lot of trouble with that business deal and everything else, and he knew he needed another alcoholic to talk to. And through a chain of events, he reached out and he talked to Dr. Bob one-on-one. And the reason Bob says he got sober is because, and Bob's tried to stay sober for 2 or 3 years, practicing some spiritual principles, but he didn't understand he was alcoholic or that first drink is what got him. But what he said was Bill Wilson was the first person that ever talked to him about alcoholism from his own experience. And that's why I don't ever think we should discount any of our experiences. We've all got different experiences. And I don't think we should discount the experience of a brand new person talking to another brand new person that maybe not as brand new as the brand new person, but they're still pretty fresh. Before the meeting, we sat down with Kiera, right, and Ben. We captured them in the back room. They sober about 60 days. And, I encourage those guys. There's people you're going to meet that are brand new in Alcoholics Anonymous. Share with them how you stayed sober for 60 days. That's the most basic service Alcoholics Anonymous has to offer. And I'm not even going to be able to scratch the surface of the service that our home group does. But we, through a lot of committed members here and other groups, we go to detox. We serve at the jails, CASA up in Lakeview. We just serve a lot of different, we go down to Samaritan Colony in Rockingham, and I'm probably missing a bunch of them, but we believe, and when we started this group, we believe that our primary purpose was to go help somebody. That's not just the name of our group, that's our job description. And so anyhow, I think about Bill and Bob, and they got together, and they eventually knew after about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, they had a solution for alcoholism. And they knew they needed a bunch of money to get hospitals and treatment centers and everything else. And that got shut down because some people that were smarter than they were told them that money would ruin this thing. But what they ended up doing is getting together and writing a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. And this book tells us precisely that's the best service they could have ever given us. It tells us precisely how to recover from alcoholism. And I was just thinking about one of the things, that it says in the book is that it says that this book is such specific directions on how to recover from alcoholism. They don't think there should be too many changes in it. I'm going to just kind of wrap it up with what Bill said and what he wrote in AA Comes of Age. And I don't know, I wish, this just kind of drives home what the true service of Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. And thinking about the circle and the triangle, here's what he wrote. He said, The new symbol for AA, a circle enclosing a triangle. The circle stands for the whole world of Alcoholics Anonymous, and triangle stands for our 3 legacies of recovery, unity, and service. Within our wonderful new world, we found freedom from our fatal obsession. That we've been chosen a particular symbol is perhaps no accident. The priests and seers of antiquity regarded the circle enclosing triangles as a mean of warding off spirits of evil, and AA's circle and triangle of recovery, unity, and service has certainly meant all that and much more. And here's what he wrote. Now about the third level, the third legacy of service, which in this afternoon's closing will be delivered in your hands for all to come. And here's what he says. AA's 12th step, carrying the message, is the basic that our fellowship gives. It's the basic service. Our principal aim is the main reason for our existence. AA is more than a set of principles. It's a society of recovered alcoholics in action. He said we must carry AA's message, otherwise we ourselves may fall into decay, and those who have not yet been born and given the truth may die. So what he said was action is the key. And I'll wrap it up around this, hopefully. But 2 years ago, we voted to shut down the primary purpose because there was so much going on and we weren't really sure what was going to happen. And I woke up the next morning and I was terrified about the decision that I helped support. And I would dare say that if Alcoholics Anonymous shut down tonight, probably everybody in this room has got enough spirituality and enough knowledge about alcoholism and the solution to be okay. We would figure it out. But here's the problem. There's a lot more people outside that's never heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's not even been born yet, that would never know that Alcoholics Anonymous had a solution, and yet we screwed it up. So I think Bill Wilson and Bob Smith and our founders, the alcoholics and the non-alcoholics alike, were very wise in their decisions to put some service structure in place, but to let us know that at the end of the day, recovery begins when one alcoholic talks to another one about and shares our experience, strength, and hope about how we can be free from the fatal obsession of alcoholism. So thank you. Appreciate y'all being here.